I want to definitely lead off is with how have you gone from selling a guitar for $900 and living on food stamps into creating what is now momentum and being deeply ingrained in the health and wellness field?
The jump isn't as far as you think. I was a starving artist for a long time, and then I just got to the point where it was like pay rent or sell all my guitars. And I made the difficult choice to do that. And in the process of that, I started my first company and just kind of got addicted to creating. And so being an artist isn't that different than being an entrepreneur. It's a little more function over form, right? But you can still put your heart and soul into something and really strive to express what lights you up in the world. And it's just a product or a service is like a song. You're just trying to connect with someone. You're trying to transfer something you feel to them, and hopefully it's useful. And with Momentum Shake, I really tried to get back to that concept of being an artist. So I wanted it to represent the things I cared about the most. I wanted to put my name on it and be proud of it, and like really treat it like this is the greatest thing I can create right now. It's like from my soul, and I want it to connect with you. I want it to make an impact where you feel it at an emotional level. So the jump wasn't quite that far. It just took a long time, to learn to be useful, to learn to provide things that resonated with people. And you can do that with art, but you can do it with products. And I think this has been the most exciting thing I've ever created, just because of that response that I'm getting from people. Like it really, really seems to affect them in a positive way. And that's super inspiring to continue the pursuit of perfection, I would say.
Yeah, you're making me really think of so I'm reading the book The War of Art, and he's talking about muses and how basically, it's like we are in an antenna, and these ideas or epiphanies come to us, and it's like, do you take the moment and act on it, and is it something that really just really resonates with you, and do you move forward on it, or do you pass it up and allow it to go to somebody else? And it sounds like you've kind of mastered that skill of being able to tune into that muse and act on the thing that's resonating with you and bring it to life into this real world. So that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to put where inspiration and motivation and desire come from. These are not necessarily conscious choices on our part; they're attention that we like decide to follow, and that's I just couldn't ignore it anymore. I was spending hours every day. I had sold a few companies that didn't really need to work ever again, and I just was spending 4 or 5 hours a day, like researching about health and longevity, and just pushing the concept of like how good can life be, how I is all this stuff inevitable? Is just aging and sickness just a requirement, or do we have a little bit of choice? And I think we have more choice than we give ourselves credit for. So I was just constantly doing that, and I stepped back and I looked and I was like paying attention to my attention, and I was like, "Oh wow, there's something here. I'm really excited about this. I don't, no one's got to tell me to work on this." And so I decided to try to turn it into something that was beneficial for people. And so I really looked at what is getting in the way of people having the life that they want, the health that they want. And it's not more information, it's not more stuff. It's that this is hard to incorporate into a regular person's life, right? We don't want to take 50, 60 supplements. We don't want to do the third party tests and all the research and try to figure out, how many podcasts do we all listen to and books trying to understand something this complex, and there's so many different opinions. Who do you trust? So I wanted to curate a product that took years and years and years of research and knowledge and turn it into wisdom. So it was a one step thing. You didn't have to go do all of that. You could just do this action and get this result. And that's what I think we have achieved with Momentum.
Yeah, and we were speaking earlier a bit about kind of just simplifying the health and wellness process. And before we dive into that, I know I was going to mention that a lot of a lot of these great ideas and things that like inspire us a lot of times come from a pain point in our life, and for me, like with this podcast, it came from me living the first like 15 years of my life with terrible IBS, waking up in the middle of the night, like with these crazy stomach cramps, as a little kid, like not even eating food before I go on a field trip to make sure that I'm not going to have to like have to use the restroom and like stop the entire bus. And so that entire pain point of that first portion of my life is what led to this. And I know that for you, momentum also kind of stems from a pain point, maybe not necessarily with yourself, but I believe it was with your partner, right?
Yeah, that really clarified what it needed to be. I was already very inspired to try to figure out health and wellness, but the my long-term girlfriend got diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. She was, forced to very quickly try to figure out some sort of supplement routine, and she just couldn't swallow 50 pills a day. So I was like, I need to make this a shake. And so that pain point became really clear that health, anything we want to really achieve needs to be made easy. We can't be fighting against our physical and psychological boundaries where we have to constantly have willpower. It needs to be downhill. It needs to have gravity on our side. It needs to have desire on our side. So I tried to make the shake as easy and delicious as possible while still, putting all of these amazing things in there. I feel like we've been brainwashed our whole life that eating healthy has to taste bad, that being healthy has to be a state of sacrifice or you're in constant pain from exercising. That's how we would define a really good workout, is that it kicked your ass and I'm exhausted, I'm wiped out. And I just, I really want to push back against all those narratives that pain is the path. I just don't believe that. I feel like a long term path feels like pleasure. It feels good. It's obviously not hedonism, but when you can do something that you enjoy doing and the benefit is optimal health, I think that's the best thing you can possibly do. But yeah, it was definitely, it came like an aha lightning bolt when she got sick, that we have to figure this out now, and I need to figure this out in a way that um, she'll stick with, and is not complicated.
I think that's probably the number one hurdle when it comes to health and wellness for 99% of the population, is finding something that is not only good for you, but is something that you can actually stick with, and that's why you hit the nail on the head where it's like these 2 hour long workout sessions, and like 3 hours in the kitchen, like, and then buying all these supplements, taking 50 pills a day. Like it's sustainable for a short period of time, but it's something that the average person is just not going to do for a long extended period of time. And that's why for me, like simplifying a lot of things in my life, like sometimes I'm not able to go get a great workout in, and so I do a thing called the hundreds, where I pick 3 to 5 exercises, I do 100 of them, and like I knock it out in less than 30 minutes, and that is so much better than saying I don't have time to go to the gym, I'm just not going to do anything. And so I think when we can find these little easy hacks that are, they're not really hacks. I mean, you're still doing the great work, but it just makes it so much easier to fit into our lives, because the average person doesn't want to spend like a majority of their day having to like perfectly think everything out. They're not Brian Johnson or Dave Asprey or something. You know what I mean? Like we're trying to just live a happy and healthy life that is more centered around community and enjoying your life. And so I see that with momentum, because I was going through your ingredient list and I was very surprised at how many ingredients were in what, I mean, I guess you would call like a protein shake, but it's really, I think, much more than that. So I'm very curious, when you were doing the research on momentum and formulating this product, what was some of the most interesting research that you found that you were like, wow, this is so simple, but it's just something that no one has the awareness of, or, this is a key ingredient that people are just not getting enough of in their diets, whether it be fiber, protein, or whatever. What were some of those findings that you found that really were like crazy epiphanies for you?
Whenever you're building anything, I try to have what I call like a keystone theory or insight, or and you have to really approach something with intention because it's so simple to just do everything, right? When you're trying to communicate, you can say everything, but it's much more difficult to say it simply and clearly short, right? Um, so when we're talking about the concept of aging, let me back up even a little bit. We're talking about health, like what causes all disease, and you can shorthand that to essentially aging, right? Your body has broken down. Nobody is surprised when a 20-year-old car doesn't work anymore. They're like, um, things wore out, right? And the same thing with your body. Like everything that you are describing is usually a symptom of aging. Your body is breaking down faster than it can repair itself. So let's look at why that is. And if we can focus on slowing aging, we're going to solve a ton of all these downstream of things instead of focusing on like we're going to stop heart disease, we're going to stop cancer or autoimmune issues. That they all stem from this phenomenon of our bodies breaking down. So what does that mean? uh, why would our body, which can heal itself, be breaking down faster than it can repair itself? And my thesis is that we are losing things as we get older, and you can see this. Like we lose muscle, we lose collagen, we lose NAD, we lose mitochondrial function. These are all declining as we get older, and your body cannot make the repairs if it doesn't have these raw materials. So I really focused all of my research around what are the top 20 things that we are declining in as we get older. And what if we just gave our body those raw materials at the same levels we have when we're in our 20s? Can our body take the raw materials and patch the wall behind us and fix things up, right? So everything in momentum is focused around what's your body made out of and declining in or deficient in. There are almost no botanicals or magical pills that you would see in almost all other supplements, right? Those are usually some sort of plant or some other novel thing that got tested on mice that they think are going to alter the way your body works. And if you want to be an experiment, great. I don't. I want to give my body the stuff I know it's made out of. So your body's made out of protein and collagen and hyaluronic acid. And that's what we put in the shake. So everything fits into that. And it is in the same form that your body is made out of. And it makes the decision very simple on what goes in and what goes out. And so that was one of the main parameters. And the second is money is not an issue for me. And for a lot of folks, health is a way higher priority than the pennies. So I wanted to see like how much could I spend making this product? I want to make the Ferrari, the Rolex. I want to make the absolute pinnacle of a supplement. So everything went through. Okay, I want this ingredient. I want protein, right? What's the most expensive protein in the world? Okay, so I go to Ireland because it's the only place in the world that can have truly grass-fed certified uh, dairy, right? Because it's one of the only places in the world that can grow grass year round. You can't do that in most of the world. And that costs like twice as much, right? And so we did that for every single ingredient. And I personally went and talked to every single manufacturer for that. So that's like the second thing. Everything in there is wildly expensive. It's at the biggest dose that is, it's at the effective dose. You see a lot of these things that say they have 70, 80, 100 superfoods. And then you look at it and it's in like micrograms or milligrams. Like you have 2 grains of salt worth of carrot. And you're like, okay, I don't know if a carrot is a superfood. And I don't think 2 milligrams of it is going to make a difference in my life. But 30 grams of protein will, and a gram of NMN will. Those are like significant things. So that's the other thing. Most expensive at the right dose. And then, yeah, that's the main thing. And it's got to taste good. So it's got to be a really not just okay experience, like a desirable experience. And so a lot of our customers like they get pissed when they don't have it. It's like it's their new breakfast or it's their new lunch, and it's like something they really look forward to doing instead of like choking down some artificial thing. So
Yeah, actually, in our opinion, I'm sure the most important thing is making sure it's good for you. But for the average consumer, it is, does this taste good? Can I consume this? That seems to be definitely the most important thing to make it at least a daily reoccurrence. But when it comes to the ingredients, you were mentioning that, you were looking at what's like the best quality ingredients I can put in there, but then also um, not overpricing it. Was there any ingredient you came across that you were like, this is incredible. I wish I could include this in the momentum shake, but it just honestly is like going to put the price point way out of the average consumer's grasp.
I'm not concerned about that. Like literally, like I set up that stipulation. Like we're going to focus on things that our body's declining on, and I do not care at all what the cost is. So like there are so many options that are very inexpensive in the world, and there aren't ones. And I'm not intentionally trying to make it expensive. I'm just trying to, if this is amazing, I don't care what it costs, it's going in the shake. And then I'll have to adjust the price. We probably have some of the lowest margins of any supplement company. Just like for perspective, like, so AG1 is a very popular drink, and it's mostly going to be a multivitamin in the form of a green drink. And it's got like 6 grams or so of botanical, like wheatgrass and things like that, which is such a nominal amount that would is a it's a meaningless amount. The vitamins and minerals are good, right? That whole drink, like per serving, might cost 20 cents, right? That might be generous. Ours costs like 250 per serving, just in the cost of goods, right? Because there's if you went out and bought all of these individual supplements, it would be about $550 a month worth of supplements. You're getting at the same dosage you would take it individually. So, this if I found something that I thought was absolutely necessary for your body and just obviously worked, it would be in the shake. And we left out many, many, many things on purpose, not because of the cost, but because of the efficacy, or the inverse, maybe the negative effect. So we don't put things like vitamin A or C or E, um, because almost nobody's deficient in those things. But also they're fat soluble, which means they're going to accumulate in your liver, and this is just not a good thing. There's a lot of research that supplementing those vitamins is going to lead to negative outcomes, the opposite of what we're trying to do here. So we're not trying to we're not in a race. We're like, we got 200 things, 200 superfoods, 5 billion superfoods. We're trying to get the ones that actually matter at meaningful doses and remove everything else.
Yeah. So first off, I 100% agree with you. There's a few like green shakes, whatever you want to call them, that I've looked into it. I'm like, okay, cool. Like you're not overdoing it. You put like 9 ingredients maybe in there, and that's awesome. Like you put it in a significant dose. Whereas, yeah, when you see something that has like 100 ingredients in it, you should be super wary. Like how much are they asking you to put? Like how many scoops are they asking you to put in? Because that's really going to be important when we're talking about a clinically backed dose. And that was one of my big questions with your product was, are these in clinically backed doses? And just for the listeners out there, I have Armra Colostrum, and I saw that on your ingredient list you have Colostrum. Super cool. I was like very happy to see that. And first thing I did, how much did he put in there? Go down 2 grams.
You'd assume low, right? Because it's very
I
expensive.
That was my first thought. I was like, okay, it's probably going to be a quarter, something like that of what a actual serving size would be. And I go and I look at the Armor Colostrum. How much is it? It's 1 gram, and you have 2 grams in there. So you actually went above what the leading probably colostrum brand out there currently has in their like single ingredient product. So that was really cool.
There's an extra step to that too. So for the listeners who don't know what colostrum is, it's the first milk that all mammals make, and the reason we have it is because it's an amazing delivery vehicle for immunoglobulins and for growth factors. So it's going to help repair your immune system and help repair your body. So everything is your body breaking down versus your body repairing itself. So we're trying to replace parts of your immune system, part of your gut lining, and heal a lot of those things and really, really help facilitate this repair process. Um, as you might imagine, the longer you wait from right after something is born and you get that very first milk, which is the most potent, then it just slowly becomes regular milk, right? So Armora collects milk within the first 7 days. And day 7 is exponentially less than the first milking, as you might imagine. So you can measure all of those things, immunoglobulins, lactoferrin, all these things are easily measurable. And they are, because they're blending the first 7 days, they're about a third to a half as potent because we are only taking the first milking. That's it.
Wow.
So not only are we including 2 grams, we're including something that's 2 to 3 times more potent. So it's more like a 4 or 5x on the actual deliverables of what they're doing, and as you might imagine, it's significantly more expensive to do it that way. Again, like when you have a really clear intention, all these decisions become super, easy to make. Like I'm just talking with the manufacturer, like, what do you take every day? What would you say the optimal dose is? He's like, oh, I take 2 grams of this. I'm like, okay, that's what's going in the shake. Great.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it's really hard sometimes. I have like even like family members or friends where I show them the stuff that I'm like, this is shown to work. And I've anecdotally had it on myself. I use it on myself and I've seen what it does. But it's so hard to get people to jump that hurdle of that investment sometimes. And it really bugs me because, I mean, it's like the old saying, it's like the average person has 1,000 things that, they worry about on their mind, and the sick person has one thing, their health. And so it's hard to convey that message, but at the end of the day, when pricing really does speak loudly, like you are truly getting what you pay for when you go to CVS and you get a $5 probiotic, and then you go to, I don't know, Erewhon, Whole Foods, whatever, and you get that $50 probiotic. There's a massive difference in there. And it's not only in the ingredients. Not only are you sourcing super high quality ingredients, but then, I saw that you're doing third party testing for things like heavy metals. That's not free. It's not a third party cert that they just give out. Like you pay for that, and it shows up in the cost of the good. And there's many people who maybe are willing to take the risk and not have a third party tested, and so be it. But it shows up in the final product for sure. And so I think it's important to include all the costs. It's not just the sourcing of really high quality ingredients, it's everything else that goes into it too.
Yeah, I would say things that we are doing radically different than everything out there is that most companies are entrepreneurs with the background in marketing, right? They're not makers. So they're working with a third party company to make the product, maybe design the product, and maybe they've never even been there, right? And they also do that other company's going to do all the sourcing, for the raw materials. I did all the sourcing. I would interview for each thing. I would interview 10, 12 different manufacturers, find the one, make a personal relationship like this, and then negotiate the deal. And then I built our own facility. So we do all the manufacturing in house. Not because it was like less expensive, but because it was the only way I was going to get the quality that I wanted.
Yeah.
Um, I remember this great story about Steve Jobs when I was younger, that he got in a big fight with his engineers because on the inside of one of the Macs, they were using these kind of ugly screws that didn't work that well. And they're like, why do you care? Like, no one's ever going to see these. He's like, it's part of my thing, like I'm going to see them. So like that's I knew that the only way to get to the, daily I'm going to try to make an improvement on this was to be there to like actively like be seeing the process, to taste it, and just to have full control from beginning to end. And there are so many things that I can't control still because I can't, I can't own a herd of 30,000 cows and things like that. But there are certifications and things that can oversee this. And even then, even though there's direct relationships, I still want to verify. So like everything gets tested before it gets put in the shake, and then once everything's there, I want to test it. And so we put it to a company called Eurofins, the top tester for all these things. We test for all the microbes and mold and things like that. But then the really expensive tests are these heavy metals, and it's the octams, we really want to first do no harm. And the idea that you're taking hyper concentrated ingredients, which means you're hyper concentrating heavy metals, can be really dangerous. And a lot of companies simply have no idea how much arsenic and lead is in their product. And luckily, because we're paying top tier for all of these things, that stuff is just not in there from the beginning, and we prove it. And then we post it on the website. We're always posting every quarter when we get these tests done. Like, here's our latest results, and people are not used to seeing these things. Uh, I know, like Brian Johnson posts, but sometimes those results aren't that good, and he gets called out, and then he deletes them. Ours are good because it starts from there, and we're like on top of it. So yeah, it's just really important to have full control, and at every single step of the way, you want to be approaching that same sense of um, pride. Isn't the same, but like an extension of who you are.
Mhm.
Just as like an analogy to the screws inside of the computer. Most companies are using an imitation vanilla in their vanilla, right? Because vanilla is the second most expensive spice in the world. It's like almost as expensive as gold. Um, we we import vanilla beans, the most expensive vanilla beans straight from Madagascar. I know the farmers, and then we make our own vanilla extract. Like, this is the level of like kind of crazy that we're trying to do. It's just as an example of how we do everything.
Yeah, well, it literally reminds me of the quote, "How you do anything is how you do everything," and coming back to that screw, sure, no one's gonna see it, but that's the thing. Like, you want a person who's going to build a computer that is so obsessive that they care about even that little screw, because that means that their entire product is going to be based off of that level of requirement and expectation. So that's really awesome, and cool to kind of hear this story of, like, how you do your sourcing and all that. I mean, it's really respectful, and I appreciate that massively. Now, I do have a question when it comes to protein, actually. That actually, also, I wanted to make a quick point for people who don't know as well. Chocolate, super high in heavy metals, and really hard to find one that doesn't have high levels or concerning levels of heavy metals. Now, quickly, can you do you know, and are you able to provide just a quick breakdown of why is it important for us to be so concerned with heavy metals? What's the reason we don't want that in our products?
Sure. Your body doesn't have a way of getting rid of them. And every heavy metal has a different thing on it. Lead is particularly bad. It was part of gasoline for a long time, and when you burn it, it would be part of the water, it would be part of the air. And a lot of just long-term studies is like it lowers your IQ. It changes your emotional perception. It messes with your brain. So there's no way to get rid of it. Actually, the only way to get rid of it would be donating your blood. So if you went like and donated blood 2 or 3 times a year, you could get rid of some heavy metals that had built up in your body. But otherwise, it's just like constant addition. And there's heavy metals are part of everything. There's no escaping it. Like it's in your glass of water. It's in the air that you breathe. Everything that comes from the ground is absorbing metals out of the ground. So I don't want to like freak people out. I know there's some folks out there, they want to see zeros straight down, but that's just not like we live on Earth. We just don't want really high concentrations of it. And it's a difficult nuance. So like when people sometimes they see our results and they're measured in micrograms, which is a billionth. So that a 1 microgram will be in a liter. So 1 billion micrograms would make up a liter, right? So when they see that there's like 10 micrograms of lead per billion in momentum, like, oh my God, I'm like, that is about what you would get in a quarter of an apple. So unless you don't eat food, everything is relative, right? Um, but we don't want to see like it in milligrams or grams, God forbid, right? You'd probably be dead. But yeah, these are things we want to try to avoid accumulating toxins. The same thing with microplastics and things like that. Your body is not built to get rid of them in large quantities.
Yeah. Okay. That's great breakdown. Love that. And then as well. Okay. So giving, like, if you were to donate blood, you could get rid of some heavy metals. But is it also possible, for example, to use like high dose chlorophyll or something along those lines to help remove some of those heavy metals from the blood?
Yeah, you can use binders and activated charcoal and clay. I think those might do a little, but
Gotcha.
it's a difficult thing. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
it's way better
Now,
to not put them in there in the first place.
yes, that's always the case is to stop the source, like stop it from coming in, and then move from there.
That's actually a very good point just for the concept of aging. Like, you don't want to wait till you're old to start worrying about this. Like, we want to preserve what we have right now because it's very, very, very difficult to repair your body. And it becomes exponentially more difficult as you get older. You just are way less efficient. So if we're looking at like what aging is well, we don't need to get into that. Like, long story there,
We
but
can though, if you're interested in it,
sure,
but
sure. Yeah,
up to you. Or
the
the
two of the main things that I really try to focus on, with when it comes to preventing aging or at least slowing it down is mitochondrial function and then just calcification of our veins. Those seem to be the two things that are the most important things to focus on. So for your listeners that maybe don't remember your high school biology, your mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. It's actually a different set of DNA that is kind of coexisting with you inside of your cells. And it takes a whole bunch of different enzymes and it turns it into this thing called ATP, which your cell uses like gasoline to like create energy. And as we get older, we become much less efficient at that. And like a car that is running less efficient, it creates more smog and pollution, right? So that's what's happening in your body is when your mitochondria is functioning less well, it creates more oxidative species floating around in your body, and then you got to make antioxidants, and eventually that is a negative feedback loop, right? So that's why I'm talking about you want to be as soon as possible start doing things to slow your aging because it becomes every year that goes by you're going to repair yourself less and less and less and the pollution in your body is going to go up and up and up.
Yeah. Excellent way to break that down. I like that. And then as well, you mentioned the calcification of arteries. Why is that important? And then what is it that we can do to help prevent that?
Right, not just arteries, all your veins. So if you've
Mm.
ever been to the body world thing where you ever seen that, like where they remove all the skin from bodies, you can see
Oh
all
yeah.
everybody's veins. Most of our veins are like really, really, really small, like the size of your hair, right? You can see veins in your arm. I'm talking about like the little ones. And as time goes on, calcium that normally goes into your bones just starts collecting in all these little tiny blood vessels, and they start to turn to rock. And that's terrible for a whole host of reasons, as you might imagine. Not just like, oh, you have a heart attack, which is what most people think of, but you're literally not able to deliver oxygen and nutrients to your muscles and the parts of your body and your organs because the veins have died. They've just turned into stone. So we want to prevent that as much as possible. In fact, we want to go in the opposite. We want to be creating new little blood vessels. Um, and so exercise is going to help create new things. It's going to help keep blood moving. But some of the vitamins and minerals that we need are going to be helping that. So the process is that you have calcium from your diet, and then it doesn't have the raw materials it needs to make the chemical reactions to get into your bone. So you need things like magnesium, you need things like vitamin D and vitamin K. And most people are deficient in those things. And so when you don't have those, it gets stuck in your veins. When you do, it connects with it and then delivers it into your bones, where obviously you need it. And as a lot of old folks, that osteoporosis is a thing that they have to deal with. They lose muscle. Everything is just cycling in that direction, and it's just because their body didn't have the tools that it needed to finish the job, and so it gets stuck, and then that obviously escalates the problem.
Yeah. And going in towards muscle and the importance of it, obviously one of the main ingredients in your momentum shake is protein. It's whey protein. So can you break down first off the importance of protein, how much we should probably be getting per day, but then also I noticed you have branch chain amino acids in there. Can you explain kind of the difference between protein and then BCAAs and like essential amino acids as well? Like, what obviously proteins are made up of essential amino acids, or yeah, of amino acids. So what's the difference? Why is it better to have it in just its like pure form, or does having it in both forms play a role?
So this is a really common misunderstanding. Protein is just a catch-all for amino acids, right? So you have different vehicles delivering, like a chicken breast, a protein shake, plant protein, tuna, steak. These are all delivering. Those are all protein, and they're delivering amino acids. And you've got tens of thousands of different proteins that your body is made out of, and they are um, combinations of different forms of amino acids, right? So a protein could have 60 different amino acids all linked together and folded up. And those amino acids come in a bunch of different shapes and sizes. N- uh, 9 of them are called essential amino acids, and they are essential because your body can't make them. With these 9, it can kind of create all the other ones, but you need to be eating these 9 essential amino acids. And in those 9, 3 of those are called branch chain amino acids. And why those are important is because those are the ones that are required for building muscle. The other ones do other things as well, but you need these 3 to do it. So it doesn't matter if you're eating 20 grams of protein, if it doesn't have those in significant quantities, those 3 branch chain amino acids, you're not going to be building muscle or delivering the nutrients that your body needs to make those repairs. So the difference in quality of protein between different vehicles is massive. So the reason we don't use plant protein is because it's really, really low in those 3 branch chain amino acids, like 75% less than there is in whey protein or a steak or something like that. So the quality of your protein is massively important. You don't need to take them separately, right? You just need to make sure that you're getting enough of each. That's why on the bag we list how much of each amino acid is in there, and we just highlight like here's your branch chain amino acids. The highest quality, and by quality I mean like delivering the most of the essential amino acids, is whey protein when it comes to a drink. It's not close. It's not debatable. Everyone's got a lot of opinions on it, but it's because they're trying to sell you something. I can deliver any kind of protein I want to you. I want to give you the absolute highest quality one. Um, yeah. So the only drawback for whey protein is some people don't digest it very well. I would say 98% of people do, but some people have serious gut issues. Ironically, if you work on fixing your gut, which is foundational for your health, you're going to be able to digest those things correctly. But we put in 20 grams of grass fed whey protein, and then we put in 10 grams of grass-fed collagen protein, and that's going to give a different balance of those amino acids. Um, in their collagen peptides. Peptides means that you have that big bundle of proteins, and they have an enzymatic process to release those and break them into amino acids again. So it's just different vehicles to deliver these amino acids in different ratios. And so there's a total of 30 grams of protein, and it's just super efficiently packed with the most essential amino acids. I hope that is that a good breakdown.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. No, it's that's an excellent breakdown. And I see a lot of products out there now that are just branched chain amino acids or essential amino acids. And so I mean, I've done quite a bit of a deep dive on it, but I think it's such a topic that is a little bit hard to decipher. And so I figured you'd have a great answer, and you did. But yeah, and then there's one other ingredient I was going to ask you about that is one I've heard about, but I actually haven't done a ton of research on, which is NAD plus. And I know you have an NAD plus precursor in the momentum shake. So what role does NAD plus play in our health and wellness? I see a lot of it for like quote unquote anti-aging stuff. Where do you see a lot of the research, and what's the purpose for putting in a NAD plus precursor?
So NAD is the gasoline that the mitochondria burns in like the most simplistic terms. Um, so as we get older, we lose about 50% of it. NAD is a molecule that is part of every living organism on the planet. And because our mitochondria function less and less well, we just produce less of it. Back to 10th grade biology, there's something called the Krebs cycle, and it's this process of enzymatically turning vitamin B3 nicotinamide into NR nicotinamide ribosome into NMN nicotinamide mononucleotide, and these are precursors because they're going through this chain of enzymatic reactions to break down and become small enough to enter the cell again and then get converted one last time into NAD. So we use NMN at a full gram. So it's this form of vitamin B3 that is small enough to make it through your gut and into your blood, and then small enough to get into the cell wall and then be converted into NAD. You don't want or can't really just supplement NAD. It's not a stable molecule and it won't get past the gut and it's too big to get into your cell, right? Um, and so I'm pretty dubious when people are taking NAD injections for the same reason. They're bypassing the gut, but it's still probably going to just be broken down and go through that same conversion process and turn into NMN. And then, yeah, so it's hyper inefficient. I think the thing you want to do is that last step, NMN, and then it can be right away turned into NAD. So when you supplement it, you are returning your blood NAD blood levels back to they were when you were in your 20 before you really started aging in a negative way. And then your mitochondria has enough fuel and it can function and can repair itself. So that's why I think it's just wildly important. It's foundationally something your body needs and you lose as you get older. And so that's why it's fitting in with that concept. Alone, yeah, it's alone, it's not it's going to be helpful, but not enough. There's a whole bunch of other things that are required for that last enzymatic reaction, like magnesium, like trimethylglycine, what we would call a methyl donor. You need all these things for electrons, and a lot of times people will take one thing, right? People will just take a zinc supplement, for instance. But if you do that, you're going to deplete all of your copper in your body. So you really need to be making sure if you're going to take something that you know what the partner ingredient is. And so you have to take zinc and copper together. Otherwise, you're going to have a negative interaction. You need to take NMN and TMG together. And it's just like this insane amount of knowledge that I don't expect anybody to try to go figure out in any kind of nuanced way. You literally have to step back and then talk to like 10 radically different experts and see where the overlap is, because usually people are siloed and they know about one thing. They don't know about all of the things a little bit, right? That's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, it's kind of wild how things work very synergistically or not, or they don't work with certain things together well. And so that was kind of one of my questions around your products was, well, or anything that kind of like you found anything that just kind of couldn't be put in there because they don't work well with each other.
I don't think there was anything that couldn't go in because of a negative interaction. Almost everything has a partner, right? Like vitamin D and vitamin K2 have to be taken together, right? They are negative if you just take one and don't have the other. And that is the situation for a lot of those things. When you're sticking to like your body is made out of this and is declining, that really helps figure this out. And I want to structure this as close to a normal meal that you would have. A lot of people are like, oh, we need to have this on an empty stomach and you need to have this by itself. Like, what on the world do you eat that is like that? So the entire when you zoom out, the entire shake is structured. It has protein, it has carbs, it has fats. It's like any meal you would eat, and they are required for you to absorb all those things. Like a lot of these people take vitamins on empty stomachs. Well, it's not going to work because you didn't have any fat, right? You're just going to pee it out. You didn't have carbohydrates, with your protein. It's not going to get absorbed as well. Any bodybuilder is going to tell you that. So yeah, I think it's really important to have a holistic approach to everything that you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. Well, I love momentum. I'm super excited about it. I wanted to actually take a little portion here of our podcast episode to actually go into a little bit more of the business side of things. And like I said, I kind of mentioned earlier on in this episode that you have a very interesting life, and I'm sure very interesting events that we could share on here. But one of the first things I wanted to dive into, because I'm actually working on an episode all around discipline, building discipline, different practices I use to improve my discipline. I was diving into the prefrontal cortex, which is largely responsible for that, and how essentially you can strengthen it like a muscle. Discipline is a characteristic or a trait that is truly something we can develop in ourselves, and we can strengthen it. And so, being a multiple business owner, I'm sure you have a pretty high level of self discipline just to even show up every day. But what are some of the practices you have in your daily life where you practice discipline, and how have you seen it improve your business or your personal life? Like, what are the things that have been like the biggest ROI?
This is not the answer you want to hear, but I have zero discipline. Yeah, I actually, I am the opposite of it. I really kind of try to practice a philosophy of flow, of effortless action, as it were. Um, my general theory is, if I have to force myself to do something, I'm not listening to either myself or the feedback I'm getting around the world. I really want the path before me to be simple and obvious. And so that means, like in a business way, am I forcing this, or are people knocking on my door? Am I getting a lot of inbound? Like, that's the direction I want to move toward. If it's constantly like doors shut in my face, nobody wants this thing, and I'm just trying to make it happen, hustle, like, step back. Let me look at the product, let me look at the offer, let me look at what I'm doing until I get to the place where people are knocking on my door and I have to say, I'm sorry, I'm out. I will get back to you as soon as I'm available. That's always the position I want to be in when it comes to creating business. And so, like with momentum, um, we don't really advertise because we can't, not because I don't want to, but like I'm trying to unlock capacity. And these things are also expensive, which means that the demand is higher than the supply. So getting the supply chain to be robust has been the thing I've been working on all year, and building out the team so we can make enough. And then once I get to that point where the supply exceeds the natural demand, then I will continue to advertise. But that has always been the way, the Tao, if you were, uh, that
Yeah.
I want to move forward. I don't want to like force myself to do something I don't like to do. That sounds miserable. None of this stuff really, really matters. We're all, no matter what I try, I'm probably all going to die. So I'm going to at least enjoy this experience as much as possible. So I really move towards things where it doesn't require motivation. It's that I can't stop thinking about it. I just really,
Yeah.
really enjoy the process of making this company and learning about it. I'm endlessly fascinated. I could do 10 of these podcasts in a row because I could talk about this all day. I love it. It lights me up. It makes me feel alive. And so that's what I'm moving towards. And whenever I run into resistance, like, oh, this sucks so hard, I ask myself a couple questions. Because there's so many things in business and life that I'm like, I do not like doing this, and it does not receive my attention at that point. So if it's a necessity, it will keep raising its hand, right? You need to take care of this. And in that situation, I will either create a system that solves it or removes it ideally, or I will bring in someone that likes to work on that problem. Uh, but most of the time, it's a not necessary thing. Most of the energy and effort that we're putting out into the world is useless. It's not moving us forward towards our destination. It's certainly not moving us in a direction that feels like a pleasurable journey. I want everything to feel like a nice walk in the woods. You know, I don't really I don't want to have a preconceived notion of like, this is where I need to be and because of this. And I was like, I'm going to just walk through the world and like, oh, I've discovered this. This is really nice. I'm going to do that some more. And I'm not trying to do maximum effort all the time. I'm trying to do effective effort.
Yeah. Well, I actually think you might be the most disciplined because you listen to like you said, the flow of life, right? You see where the resistance is, and a lot of people lack the discipline to recognize when they're beating a dead end, right? Like they're just going and smashing their head against a wall over and over, and they don't have the discipline to pull back and recognize that that's the case. But that was an excellent answer, because I think, especially for someone as a business owner, it's there's a lot of stuff to do on your plate, and it's easy to just feel overwhelmed and feel like you have to do everything, as opposed to taking a step back. And I love to look at the photo of what is it? It's like our Milky Way galaxy, and there's like a little arrow pointing to us, and it's like, you're here crying in the shower about paying taxes or whatever. You know what I mean? And that reframe is so refreshing, because at the end of the day, truly, like, it's okay. Like, the money, the stress, the blah blah blah, it's not going to follow you after this, or who knows? I don't know what your beliefs are, but at the end of the day, like, this is just an experience, and sometimes I think we get so caught up in really just taking things so seriously. We get so caught up in the moment, and taking a moment to just step back, put things into perspective, recognize what truly matters in your life, and then prioritize those things. And like you said, by doing so, you end up feeling like you're going for a walk through the woods. Like, that's your life. That's how you feel. That should be your North Star, and you should have, I guess, the discipline to make your actions reflect leading to that North Star. And anything that draws you away from that is not the path that you should be going down. And so, was there a time in your life where you found yourself leaning into the resistance too much, and it took you down, maybe down a path that was less desirable, but maybe taught you the valuable lesson you have now?
Yeah, yeah, that was the transition from artist to entrepreneur. I was trying to make music that I really cared, and I needed, public's validation to, to be worthy. Like, and I was trying to make music that the rest of the world didn't care about, and it was just super eye opening. Like, why am I doing this? For whom? And I just kind of changed everything. That okay, I'm here because I'm supposed to expand the known into the unknown. I'm increasing consciousness, or whatever kind of woo woo stuff you want to say. I don't. Nobody really knows, right? So I can pursue a compass that points me towards pain and suffering or pleasure, and I'm just going to trust that the way I was made, if something lights me up, makes me feel alive, that's the right path. And so when I take on new projects, always just keep that in mind. Like, is this going to make me a better person? Is it going to make me grow? Am I going to enjoy this experience? Because it's all just sandcastles, right? So for me, building a business is really just a modality to build myself, and I always keep that in mind. And so all deadlines are just self-imposed things for stress. Like, I just work on things as patiently as possible. If it takes a few years, it doesn't matter. If I get to my end goal, I've sold companies. I don't need to sell more. It does, like, you just get to the top of the mountain, you go, now what? Right? So like, I'm really just looking for a way that I can create things that I find endlessly fascinating, help people that in a significant way, that it aligns with how I want to show up in the world, and I just work on it in a way that feels right and feels exciting, and adds to that goal. So we don't do a lot of social media because I find it abhorrent. We don't do a bunch of things that I just like feel like a drag, right? And it's like, I just want to make an amazing thing and share it with the world, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Best way to put that right there. That's a beautiful answer, and almost would love to end that episode there, but I do have one last question for you. No, so I asked this as an icebreaker at a recent company event, and I think you'd be a great person to ask it to. So, if your life were a book, and each year of your life was a chapter, what would this chapter be titled?
It's so much easier to write that when you're finished with it and you can look back at it and understand. Right now, I'm at the frontier of trying to expand my own awareness of where I'm at, right? It's hard to know the name of the forest you're standing in, or that you're even in that. Most likely, it will be around the theme of self actualization. How great a man can I become? I don't care about the accomplishments. I care about the thing I get to carry with me to the next level. Like, have I be have I increased my wisdom? Have I increased my ability to love? These are the things I'm trying to like gain strength in. So it would from yeah, it would be that final part of the hero's journey, and I have no idea what the next part looks like. So it just yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's just trust in the path, I guess.
That's once again, one of the best answers I've heard. I I really like that. You're actually spot on, and maybe you're making me think that I should reframe that question more so to what was the last chapter of your life titled? Because you're 100% right. It is. It's so hard to really recognize when you're in a moment, but rather it's so much easier to reflect on something and see, oh, that was the learning from that portion of my life. Um, but that was a cool answer. I like that.
Yeah, I know exactly what the last chapter would be. It would be called the end of enlightenment. Here I had thought I had made it. I had won the game. I had made it. I had come out the other side wise, and I was just going to retire. And it was the most painful experience I had ever had, that the entire framework of my reality of this is the American dream, you have achieved it, and you have no reason to get up ever again. There's nothing to do. This was not satisfying.
Mm.
um, and that you have not even barely begun the journey. You've only just become worthy to begin the journey. Congratulations. So it was this dark period, and then it was like this amazing new understanding. Like, oh, good, I have so many more things to go pursue and learn and become. That there is a reason to exist and keep experiencing and drifting off into the unknown. Yeah, it was quite the awakening. I wish it for everybody at some point, that you can go find your mountaintop, climb it, and then go decide this is not enough. There's so much more.
I love that. It resonates very deeply. There's so many people, myself included, too. I get so caught up in this where you see the end goal of making tons of money, not having to do a single thing with your day. You just do whatever you want, kind of deal, wake up whatever time. And I think it's so valuable to recognize that the mountaintop is not the place that you speak about. You speak about the entire trail getting there, like hiking a massive, summiting a, 20,000-foot mountain. It's never about, oh, well, yeah, sure, you'll talk about, oh, it's cool. Like it was a really beautiful view. But the 99% of the conversation is, oh my God, we had to get up at this time. It was, freezing cold. It was pure uphill. Didn't think I was going to make it at this point, and it's all about the climb. Those are the days we talk about when we finally made it to the top. And so it's really cool to hear someone who has been in that position. They summited their mountain and recognize that it's not the point. It's then you get to that mountain and you look over in the distance and you say, "Oh, there's the next one,"
Yeah,
and then you keep
I don't
going.
even pick mountaintops anymore, though. That's the next thing I think in like your awareness is me having the audacity to believe that I could know the best path forward, right? I think it's our oldest story of the tree of knowledge and the tree of life. The sin is to pick from the tree of knowledge that you could know God's thoughts, right? Like why we're here. So now I just look around and I was at the mountaintop and now I see a river and I go, where's that going? Let's find out. And I hop in the flow of that and I let it take me wherever it wants. And I really try to savor and enjoy with full trust that this is going to take me somewhere even greater. I don't need to pick out the destination. I'm just going to focus on who I am as the world comes to me.
Yep. Wow. Are you sure you're not Lao Tzu and wrote the Tao yourself?
I've studied it deeply, but
I that's no, it's beautiful. Michael, I did not anticipate this conversation going as deep as it did, and I love it so much. Michael, you've been an absolute pleasure to have on the
oh,
show.
thank you so
Thank you
much, Evan. It's
for
an honor.
for Yeah, no, thank you for your work. It's, obviously you've made a beautiful product, and it's addressing a real pain point in people's lives. But as well, just thank you for also the philosophy that you bring to life. And I hope that people walk away from this episode not only healthier from the momentum shake, but also more with their cup filled, and a little bit of a philosophy under their belt, and a more effortless way to navigate life.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Evan.
Thank you, Michael. I appreciate it, and thank you for joining. We'll maybe have you back on the show. And to all the listeners, thank you for tuning in, and I hope you all enjoyed. Have a beautiful one, and peace.